How many remembers the TV show called Moving On Up? Well, that's their theme song. The name of the show is the Jeffersons. But how many remembers the theme song? See your hands. All right, Danielle, come here. Crystal, come here. Let me see those hands again. Come on, Nova. Come on, Marie. Come on. All right, I want y'all to get in a little circle right here. And y'all are going to sing Moving On Up.
Well, we're moving on up to the east side, to that deluxe apartment in the sky.
I believe they knew that song. Y'all pretty good. Moving on up. God's, a week ago, reminded us that He wants our church to move on up. Revival. It was mentioned today. And it's just a continual call from the Spirit that we move on up. He said, revival is coming, but I promise you, we can abort the promise. We can abort the promise by staying still and not moving. Aaron sang a song a moment ago, and part of the lyrics of that song says, love is on the move when the Father's in the room. So, moving. Give me some synonyms for moving. Anybody? Hold it. What? I can't tell you. Here. Repel? Propel, okay. Well, repel would be moving too, so. Who else? Change. Sorry. Accelerate. Going. What? Graduate. I can't hear, so. What else? Shifting. Any more? Changing directions. Thank you, why? What? Drifting. Did you say drifting? That is moving. But it sounds like you might be going the wrong way. That's moving, though. Gliding. Promoting. Transition. Progressing. Climbing. Most of these synonyms that you guys are mentioning involves action and will involve effort on your part. I thought about bringing Baby D up here, and matter of fact, it's a perfect time. Billy Shane, bring that little baby up here and bring that bottle with him. Set him down right here. Come on, buddy, work with me. He's moving. And he's going. I would say he's going after something he wants. Poor man. Sometimes when we move, we run out of energy. You're not working with me very well here. How many does the Lord do that to? We don't get it. We don't go get it. So he brings it a little closer. And he brings it a little closer. And he brings it a little closer where all we have to do is reach out a hand. And we got it. Baby D, thank you. Thank you so much. I was using the wrong one. In Revelation chapter 4 and verse 1, it says, after these things I looked, and after the things that he's talking about here is after the church age has come and gone, after the rapture of the church. After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here, and I'll show you things which must take place after this. I believe with all my heart that many today are hearing the call of the Spirit to a higher place in God. How many wants to get closer to Him? All right, now we can always tell. Just about everybody lifted your hand. But how many know it's easier to lift your hand than it is to do it? Part of that song said, I didn't come here for blessing. You don't owe me anything. That is so true. That is so true. Rand, I was thinking about your testimony when those lines were being said. I didn't come here for blessing because you don't owe me anything. And you could stand up and give us 100 answers of why He don't owe you nothing. He don't owe us anything. Come up here and I'll show you things which must take place after this. And I believe that most of us honestly want to get closer to God, just like your showing of your hands said you did just a moment ago. But He's always calling us to a higher level, to be closer to Him, calling us to move to His direction. My question is He sets that bottle out there in front, and it may not be so easy to get there. Are we willing to move? Are we willing to relocate? Are we willing to strive? Are we willing to shed some tears? Are we willing to work our fingers, so to speak, to the bone? Are we willing to put out an effort to get to Him? In Exodus chapter 40, verse 37, it says, but if the cloud did not rise, they remained where they were until it lifted. Of course, it's referring to the Israelites. Cloud by day, fire by night. And then Numbers chapter 9, verse 19, even when the cloud continued long, many days, above the tabernacle, the children of Israel kept the charge of the Lord, and they did not journey. In other words, they were in obedience to what God was sharing with them by the cloud and by the fire. In Numbers 9:22, it made no difference whether the cloud hovered over the dwelling for 2 days or a month or a year. As long as the cloud was there, they were there. And when the cloud went up, they got up and they marched. The cloud is moving, church. It's time that we march. It's time that we move out. It's time that we put out effort. It's time that we allow the Shekinah glory of God to move in our hearts and in our lives today. And all this was to teach the children of Israel how to get from the prophecy to the promise. Again, we received confirmation to prophecy that has already been given to this body of believers again and again and again. And now the Lord goes, I think they're ready. I believe they're ready. And I'm going to pour out my Spirit on them. I'm going to give them the promise. We talk about miracles and healings and divine appointments and mile marker moments and the things that we want to receive in life. But it's not easy. It's not easy. And we're going to have to do some things different, because if we don't, we're going to get the same results that we've always gotten. I want to see us do some things different. I want to see us praying more in our personal lives. I want to see us fasting more in our personal lives. I want to see us lay some things down that we ought to lay down. I want to see us, when we come to the crossroads of decision, that we make the right one, that we go the right way and not the wrong way. I want to see us forsake some things that has held us back. I want to see us open up all the doors of our heart so that God can come in and do what He wants to do. I want to see Him do that. He wants us to move from the dream to reality. He wants us to see the dream become reality. He wants to see our faith. He wants to go from faith to sight, to actually seeing some of these things come to pass. It was to teach them that on the journey, their provision and their guidance and their protection was all dependent on staying under the cloud. Staying under the cloud. One of the most important lessons it taught them was to never get too comfortable. Don't get too comfortable. You get comfortable, it's hard to move you. Intentionally, God would vary the time that they would stay in a place to teach them that no matter how comfortable or convenient a place was, it was not the promise. The primary place where they were at was in a desert. I've seen some of that desert. I wouldn't care to stay there a night. It's hot. It's dusty. The wind blows. And God was gracious enough to give them a cloud, to give them shade in the day, and to give them a fire at night, because the temperatures fluctuate so much from light to darkness. But He didn't want them to get in a routine. Sometimes they would stay in a place for just a few days, sometimes for several days, but He wanted them to be ready. God's going to tap you on the shoulder for you to move, to do something you've been putting off. He's going to tap you on the shoulder to get you to look up. He wants you to stay under the cloud. He wants you to stay under the fire. He wants you to be ready. He wants you to be ready to move, to walk in obedience. Again, we get too comfortable in the place that we long to stay in. One of the greatest battles, I believe, that we fight is that of the familiar. Even though something or some place may be dry, may be desolate and difficult, once we become familiar with it, we become comfortable with it. Once it becomes comfortable to us, we resist anything that threatens the normality of our familiar place. And that's so true. You go to work for the first day. It's Randa night. You started a job a week ago or so. And I promise you, the first day that she went to work, she had the jitters. because she didn't know what to expect. She didn't know who she was going to be with. She didn't know the atmosphere of the place. And so, but by now, she's got 7 days or so into this, and hey, she just walks in bold as a lion. Because now she's comfortable. Folks, God help us. We're way too comfortable. We're way too comfortable. We're way too used to the circumstances around us, and we get familiar with them. We could even go here. Some of you have got things going on in your body that you used to ask prayer for it, but now you're comfortable in the situation, so you just started to live with it, and you even call it mine. Moving is one of the most interesting things there is in the moving process. Because in the moving process, there is ordered chaos. Sam and Candace just moved not too long ago, a few weeks. And there were times when you guys didn't even think it was ordered chaos. You thought it was just chaos. Probably, I'm guessing, I'm assuming, but probably they have boxes still packed that they haven't touched. Couple? Thank you. You guys are working with me a little better than Baby D did. When Kathy and I moved from Rattan to Poto, and we lived in one place up on Todd Street for 2.5 years, there was boxes we never unpacked from Rattan. You know where those boxes needed to go? To the dump or Salvation Army or somewhere. What's that, Sister C? All your decorations. Like I said, you know, a few moments ago, we were talking about things becoming familiar. And we use our physical bodies as proof that we get familiar, we get comfortable in a situation. But the same could be said about our spiritual. For a while, God was convicting us about a particular sin in our life, and we kept ignoring it. We wouldn't let him deal with it. We kept hiding out, kept closing the door to our heart for that one, because we really enjoyed whatever it was we were doing. And before long, we quit hearing the conviction. And we ignore it long enough that now it's become comfortable and familiar. But don't think for a moment that the enemy will let you off there. Because as soon as you accept that one, he's going to start working on another one. And eventually he's going to have you pull so far backwards that you don't even know where you belong other than you're comfortable in the position that you're at. Come on, whatever God's dealing with you about, let him have it. Confess it. Let him have it in the name of Jesus. It's part of the moving process. Everything is chaotic. Everything is moved out of its familiar place. The familiar routine is replaced by what seems to be confusion and disorder. And it's so the reason why we don't like to leave the familiar. Nothing seems to be convenient. Everything you want seems to be the hardest thing to get to. Another thing is when you start to move, you begin to realize all the things that you've accumulated over the years. A lot of it is just plain junk. Or at least stuff that is outdated and unnecessary. See, it's time for shifting and sifting. It's when you lighten your load. It's when you separate the useful from the useless and the valuable from the worthless. It's a lot of what you accumulate in one place you don't need at the next place. Talking about moving on up. And that's a spiritual truth that we learn from moving in the natural. As we move from one level to another, there are things that we need to leave behind. I don't know about you, but there's some things in my life that I'm ready to leave behind. I'm ready to leave behind some doubts. I'm ready to leave behind some fears. I'm ready to leave behind some discouragements. I'm ready to leave behind some disappointments. I'm ready to leave behind some enemies that I've been fighting. I'm ready to leave behind some traditions that have no power in them. I'm ready to leave behind some excess baggage that's been slowing me down. Moving is difficult because you're leaving the familiar, the comfortable, the normal. Moving is difficult because you discover some things that you forgot about, that you were attached to, and there they are right up in our face again. Do we go ahead and pack them and take it with us, or some of you got some friends you need to get away from? I said some of you got some friends you need to detach yourself from because they pull you down. They bring you to their level. Some of you've got some friends that you need to get away from just simply because they're so negative in nature. I could go a long ways that direction, but I'm gonna move on. Leaving the familiar, the comfortable, the normal, jobs sometimes, families, acquaintances, routines, lifestyles, experiences, bad memories, good memories. And you're entering the unknown. Or we could title it The Unknown Zone. Unknown people, unknown jobs, unknown surroundings, new experiences. In Hebrews 11:8, it says, by faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, he obeyed and he went, even though he did not know where he was going. There's not one of us in the place that knows exactly where we're going. And we trust him to take us to that place. And that knowing that he is a God that's full of blessing. He's a God that wants us to move up. He's a God that wants us to step into the supernatural. He's a God that wants only the best for us, and we sometimes have to totally trust him on the direction that we are headed. God's looking for some people that will follow him into the unknown zone. It just might as well be us, Covenant Church. In Isaiah 42, in verse 16, I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths, I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them and make the rough places smooth. Christina, for some reason, I feel this is for you. This verse of Scripture is one that you need to highlight and underline and keep it in your spirit for some days. Let's start back at the beginning. I'll lead the blind by ways they've not known. Along unfamiliar paths, I will guide them. I will turn the darkness into light before them and make the rough places smooth. These are the things I will do. I will not forsake them. But those who trust in idols, who say to the images, you are our gods, will be turned back in utter shame. And verse 18, hear you deaf, look you blind and see. Who is blind but my servant, and deaf like the messenger I sent? Who is blind like the one committed to me, blind like the servant of the Lord? Is there anybody in this room ready to move on up? To let go and let God. Anybody ready to go to the unknown zone? Is anybody ready to obey even when it doesn't make sense? To obey when it looks foolish? To obey and go when every natural instinct says stop? There are so many stories in the Bible that we read and take for granted and don't really look at them. Naaman was somebody in his world. And he had a problem with leprosy, which is symbolic of sin. And the little maid in his dwelling heard lots of things, no doubt, and she knew that she served a God that could take care of his problem. And she tells Naaman, and he goes thinking he's all that in a bag of chips. And he goes and finds the prophet, and the prophet says, God's got this. Awesome. What I need to do? Go to the river and dip 7 times. Muddy. Muddy, muddy, muddy. Awful water. And Naaman thought that was beneath him. It didn't look like it didn't make any sense. I don't need to take a bath. I need rid of the leprosy. Didn't make any sense. But finally, he submitted and obeyed. Delayed obedience, we've heard it, is disobedience. But delayed obedience is better than. And some of you have been delaying your obedience. You've been putting it off. Maybe you thought it was beneath you. Maybe you thought that don't make any sense whatsoever. I can't do that. What's people going to think of me? Naaman was all of that, and he thought people will look down. That don't look good for me. And we get caught up in those same things in this life. I can't do that. I'm the pastor. My God, what they don't think of me. We talk about transparency here. We talk about that we're in a safe place, but there's still too many of us that's holding back, that we're afraid to go ahead and let something be exposed because what people might think. Come on, it's time that we jump into the unknown zone and bear our heart before God and allow Him to do the work that I'm still talking about moving on up. So are we willing to obey? Even when it doesn't make sense. To obey would make us look foolish. To obey and go when every natural instinct says, don't go there. You know, it's said that the African impala can jump 10 feet into the air and cover the distance of 30 feet in a single stride when it's running. But this great animal can be imprisoned for the span of its life behind a 3-foot wall because it won't jump if it can't see where its feet are going to land. Come on, I'm talking about faith here. This is what it means to be blind, to trust God, to be able to jump when I can't see where my feet are going, when I don't know what my next move is going to bring about. I just know He said it, and I want to move up, so I want to do it. I want to move into the unknown zone. Again, Revelation 4:1, and after these things I looked and beheld a door standing open in heaven. And the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, come up here. And I'll show you things which must take place after this. There's some things that are not going to happen until we make the transition into the unknown zone. Or we could just call it the faith dimension. One of the greatest motivations for moving to the next level is I'm more afraid of staying where I am than of moving into the unknown. The next level that God is calling you and me to is going to take a faith step into the unknown. I know it's comfortable where we are at. Even our little fast. 21 days without ice cream. 21 days without a juicy steak. 21 days without some delicacies in our food world. And we begin to whine. And some of you put pictures on Facebook of this creation you made that reminded you of real sugar. And people would ask you when you come to church, how'd you do that? How'd you do that? I need that recipe. For some of you, it was an unknown zone, but you did it. You did it. You might not have been all full of grace in doing it, but you did it. You might have even complained some days, but you did it. And you obeyed. It might have been a little delayed obedience, but you obeyed. Now let's continue the journey. Let's continue the journey into the unknown. Because that's exactly where He wants us. This next level that God is calling you and I to is going to take that leap of faith. We've taken a huge step in the physical around here. Now let's take the next step into the spiritual. Let's go where we've never gone before. When Don Couch was giving us that prophetic word, he even referred to it as a vision that he's seen concerning this part of the state and in particularly our church. He gave us the word. And what do? We all broke out into applause and yes, hallelujah, yes, oh, can't wait. We cannot sit where we're sitting and get it done. We got to move out into areas we've never been before. Where's that going to be, Pastor? Listen, to his voice and just do what he says, and it will lead you to the unknown zone. Sharing, witnessing, telling other people about the hope that we have in Christ, no matter who they are. You may feel like you're the lowliest of low, and you run into one of our bank presidents, and God says, share. And you're going, oh, I can't do that. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. If God is speaking to you to witness, to share with somebody, you're the only one at that moment that he has tapped on the shoulder to do it. Just do it. I remember shy, bashful, believe it or not, I still am at times. God called me to preach. I was scared. And I mentioned to my father-in-law about being afraid to preach the gospel to preachers. And his advice was, Keith, I don't care if you're speaking to the President of the United States. You have been the one that is chosen to do it. And you've got the word for the moment. Deliver it. I've shared this story before, but it fits here again. Dignitaries were coming to the church for some kind of a celebration. And they came, and the pastor was afraid that Sister Sally would have her a runaway fit, because she did almost every service. And he was afraid that she would embarrass them and that it would be a bad look for the dignitaries of that town to see their church that way. So the preacher did everything he could to hold everything in check. He covered all of his bases. He made sure he didn't preach on favorite scriptures of Sister Sally, all that stuff. But they did one final song. And I don't remember the name of the song, but I'll just say it was I'll Fly Away. The song leader got into it, and yep, there was a whoop in the back. Woo! And up Sister Sally went. She was running up and down the aisles, hands raised up, talking in tongues, having her a time with Jesus. She wasn't afraid to move on up. Preacher was so embarrassed. Shut the song down. Finished the service. Walked to the back door, ready to greet the dignitaries. And the one, we'll just call him the governor of the church, or of the state. He walked up to the preacher and he said, "Good service today, preacher. Good service." He said, I know one thing. Out of everything I've seen happen to here today, I want what Sister Sally has. Because she was real. I hope somebody wants what you have. If they don't, you will know it. Step into the unknown zone. Open up your heart to him and allow him to do what he wants to do in your heart. Aaron, would you come, please? Matter of fact, the whole team come and join him. Let's go. Let's step into the unknown zone. Totally sell out to a God that gave us all we will ever need for a life of victory. Now, I say life of victory, and we go, yes, I want some of that. But it's usually always painful. usually always bring tears. But if we'll just trust Him, just trust Him. When the tears come, when our heart is broken, when we're so stinking lonely, we don't know what we're going to do. And the loneliness continues to grow, and we go, well, they don't look lonely and they don't serve God. Maybe I need to follow them around a while. No, that's not going to be the answer. Obedience is the answer. No matter how many tears we shed at night, you'll never drop a tear on your pillow that He don't see. The unknown zone, Covenant Church, is where we're headed. Places that we've never seen or experienced before. So let's sell out to Him. Looking for a life of victory, yes. A life that's filling and a life of purpose. I was coming to church a while ago, just a quarter mile or so from the house. There was 4 or 5 deer trying to cross the road, and one of them was just a little yearling that just lost its spots. Mom was already across the road, and the little deer was still on this side, and he was dancing around and not sure what to do. And I stopped, and I wanted to get out and go, come on, little deer. That little fella, in faith, stepped out into the unknown zone and went across and got with Mom. It didn't want to. Well, that's not the right way to say it. It wanted to so bad, but it was so afraid. There's going to be some things that you guys encounter that's going to be so afraid because it's an unknown zone. You're just not sure. You just go ahead and cross the road to the Father. So I promise you, that is purpose being fulfilled. And anyone that doesn't have purpose is never fulfilled. Maybe you're feeling a little bit empty tonight. Get on with the purpose of your life with God. Are you looking at a mountain that looks like it's insurmountable? Guess what? It's moving time. Climbing a mountain sometimes like eating an elephant. You do it one step at a time, one bite at a time. So I want you to stand. Guys, dim the lights if you would. I've shared my heart. I've shared what I feel like that God has wanted me to say to you tonight. It's time we move on up. It's time we move. Now, I could use Baby D in a little different light. He didn't want that bottle nearly as bad as I thought he did. Because when he was back there laying in Jessica's lap, he was down in it. Don't get so full of stuff that when God offers you something, that you're not willing to move for it. So the altar call is simply this. Some of us need change of heart. Some of us need change of direction. Some of us need to cross the road. Some of us need to move and eat the meat that God only offers. I want you to come and find you a place to pray and go after God. Aaron and the team's going to lead us in worship. I want you to pray first. And then after you're done praying, then worship. But let's move to the unknown zone. Let's move